right, I was going to tell you the Kevin story. Kevin is a kid I knew in high school. So this would be, I first met him about like 1974, 75. He wasn't my friend. He was a friend of a friend. And Kevin's not his real name. Kevin is a name I came up with when I wanted to talk to him about what I was noticing about him. So I instead of talking about him to himself, I would talk to Kevin. I would tell him about Kevin. And Kevin, he realized that Kevin was actually his personality. But that's where the word Kevin came from. And I've been keeping it through these years. Kevin was a conspiracy nut. Now, this is before, I don't even know if we even invented that word conspiracy nut yet. But Kevin was one of those kids that we'd sit around at these big tables in the study hall cafeteria area. There we could fit like 12 guys. And he always had weird topics to talk about, like Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, UFOs. Oh, but we didn't call them UFOs. We called them flying saucers back then. And like he had ideas like Elvis is still alive or dead or whatever. Beatles are still alive or dead or whatever. And he always would have funny, fuzzy photographs. And this is way before, the internet. So he just had his notebooks and stuff like that he'd bring out when he'd want to talk to us about stuff. And I just thought it was humorous. I wasn't really a friend of his. I would listen, and I just thought it was all funny because it was like there was no evidence at all. It was all, most of the stuff was taken from the National Enquirer. So I couldn't picture someone being serious about it, but it seemed like Kevin kind of took it serious. Well, after a while, we were sitting alone, a couple of guys here with him, and he came out with this idea that was just too, I don't know what it was, but it was just too far-fetched for me. It was just too silly. I mean, how can you take it serious? So I'd never really spoken to him, but finally I asked him, you keep coming up with all these ideas, like when the end of the world is going to happen and stuff like that, and nothing ever comes true, and you never have any proof of anything. And it doesn't seem to bother you. And boy, that got a look from him, and all of a sudden, he did something to respond to me where he simply, he assumed I'm part of the conspiracy. And he wasn't just making a smart-ass remark or something like that. He actually was very serious. When he said I was part of the conspiracy, he believed that, like, I was contacted by the government or I was in league with the government or something like that. And they've been having meetings and we talk about Kevin. And so he's serious about this. He wasn't joking. And so, I'd had enough of him. Well, that was about the last I ever talked to him, really. And then we graduated, years and years go by. All of a sudden the internet gets going and Facebook gets going. And I get a friend request by a whole bunch of kids that I graduated from. I hadn't contacted these guys like in 20-some years. One of them was Kevin. And I started getting Kevin's updates. And it's obvious to me that Kevin really did not evolve out of that conspiracy kind of stuff that he was into. He was even worse now. And I think a lot of it he was getting from a radio show called Art Bell. Because he started to kind of like post in league with that, like whatever Art Bell was sending out that week or month or whatever, he was really pushing that idea. And then finally, I don't know who was president, but I know Kevin went just all in with the idea that Bill Clinton was about to get arrested. And it just went on and on. Yep, it's all set. The investigation has proven it. The marshals are getting ready to go get and arrest him. The next, in the next few days, you should see a photograph on the internet of Bill Clinton arrested, mugshot. And it went on like that, but it never had no conclusion. Like, he never would follow up. He just would post these outlandish things. And of course, nothing was ever true about it. And he'd just keep posting the next outlandish thing. And then Hillary, oh my gosh, Hillary was Secretary of State. I can't tell you the number of times Kevin told me that the marshals were on their way to serve her and they would take her in custody. One time, he posted a thing where he said that the Secret Service is now agreed to hold Hillary in the residence until the marshals get there, and that's the thing he told us. And he was sending this out to like hundreds of people. And there was never any follow-up. No, hey, what happened to that idea? Nobody ever questioned about that. And then, of course, things went on and on and on, and Trump, of course, and he was just everything that you would imagine, just any conspiracy at all with Trump. Kevin was just all in. And finally, of course, that had to happen is that COVID. And he was one of these, not only was he a COVID denier, and he switched right from denying it, that it was real, to saying that the only cure that works, that's saving people, is some sort of into Mectron or Fictron or whatever it was. So, I mean, he just was one conspiracy after another. He just switches, tags off, and he's now on to the next conspiracy. And finally, we got to after the election, and Trump went all of that, the election denier crap. And Kevin was just one thing after another. He was saying, oh my God, this, and oh my God, that, and here's the proof. And he was linking all this stuff, and every single thing turned out to be false. And Kevin turned out to be one of those guys who was all in with that one pillow guy. I forget his name. But he believed every single thing that pillow guy was coming out with. And the pillow guy, I don't know if you remember this, but he was making statements like, the proof is there, the proof is here, the proof will be there, you just go to this meeting. You go to this meeting and you'll have the proof, and then you go to the meeting, and the only thing he says at the meeting is go to the website. Well, if you go to the website, because you could do that right there, all it was an invitation to give him money where you get more information. So he had nothing to back it up. And yet Kevin, he never follows up. So finally I'd had enough. And I shot my mouth off back to him, and I told him, and I brought it all the way back to when we first met, and he was pushing Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot and flying saucers, that he's never been right on anything, and none of these conspiracy guys are right about anything, but it doesn't seem to bother him. But the weirdest thing is when I told him that, then Kevin turned around, and he used a term I'd never heard before. He said, well, you're a Fed. I'd never heard of that term before. Well, I mean, I guess short for federal officer, but he used it just as the word Fed. He kept using Fed. And I had no idea what this meant. And I'd never run into it before, but I've run into it since I've been on this forum, where a guy named Adam John, he accuses people the same way. He's just like another Kevin, where he throws that word Fed out there, that they can't possibly imagine somebody who's come to a different conclusion. They must all be part of a conspiracy. So that's my Kevin story, I'm just so sick to death of these guys, that they live in an imaginary world. They say all these things. Not a single one of them comes true. Not a single one of them. And yet they turn right around and just keep going. They're like those guys who predict the end of the world that'll happen in 2 years. They keep saying the world's going to end in 2 years. And they just keep saying it. They'll say that their whole life. Yep, we're just around the corner. 2 years from now, the world's ending. Absolute proof, guaranteed. And it's 3 years later, and they turn around and say, yes, in 2 years, it's absolute guaranteed. It never gets there, because they're wrong. They're fundamentally wrong.